Okay, let's do Unit 11, autoimmune disorders. Full disclosure, I'm recording at work today in my office, and I feel so exposed because it's like a glass door, and I feel like everybody can hear me, and then I feel like I'm a nerd. But anyways, let's go for it and see what happens. So, autoimmune disorders are a bit goofy. There's hundreds of them out there. Most of them, I think we don't know what causes them, um, and they can't be cured. There's treatments, but not cures. So we're going to focus mostly on lupus and rheumatoid arthritis today. We have to talk about some others, but at least for this class, that's the two big autoimmune disorders that we're going to talk about. So these autoimmune diseases occur when the body produces an immune response to our own tissues. And we've kind of talked about that a little bit. And I am going to pause you and change the font color. There, I just feel better about that now. So, what this is it's our immune response. We have autoantibodies attacking our own autoantigens. So, it's self versus self. And that's a real problem, as you can guess. And we'll see the range of symptoms and signs that it produces. So what happens though with these, and especially with lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, is once it starts kind of attacking itself and the immune system gets turned on to its own cells, we have a persistent activation of the immunologic effector mechanisms. So it's not just like a one and done, like some antibodies are gonna tag a couple antigens and then be removed by that RES system. This is where it continues to happen. And then usually we're getting tissue damage. And it can be tissue damage like in our vessels, but also in organs and then joints as well. So the variety of symptoms we see reflects the various forms. And we just kind of mentioned that there's so many of them. I just have one term I wanted to put here because we might say it a couple times throughout, but it's tolerance. So immune tolerance, this is the ability of the immune system to recognize and not attack the body's own cells and tissues. And it's just so we're tolerating our own stuff. I think of it as my kids. It's my ability to not go at them, right? So, but if you think about that, like you can tolerate certain people to a certain level. And it's the same with the immune system. So we want to make sure we have immune tolerance. When we don't have immune tolerance, that's when we have problems with differentiating the self versus non-self. Well, the self and non-self. Self versus non-self is what's happening with our autoimmunity. So these are some autoimmune disorders that I wanted to make sure to talk about. We're talking about it, as you can see, very briefly because we're going to spend most of our time on the two bigger ones. But let's just talk about these real quick. So the first one is Sjogren's syndrome, and it's spelled not how it's said. So it's S-G-O, oh gosh, S-J. Let me start over. S-J-O-G-R-E-N. And you say it's Sjogren. This one can be primary, so it can be its own condition, its own autoimmune condition, or Sjogren's syndrome can come about as secondary syndrome to another condition. What this does is it's kind of goofy is we have autoantibodies to our autoantigens, so antibodies to our own antigens, and it causes inflammation of our like secreting glands or excretory, I guess that's a more sciencey term. But so it messes with the lacrimal, which is tears, salivary, so that's our saliva, right? And then other excretory glands, so other glands that secrete fluids. Results in dry eye syndrome, which there's our fancy science word. You don't have to know the word. Dry eye might be a part of it, but it's keratoconjunctivitis, stica. and then dry mouth, which is xerostomia. So if you want to look cool at a party, you can throw out those words. But that's all I'm really going to tell you about this is just, it just affects those excretory glands. Another big one is inflammatory bowel disease, IBD, and this is the big overarching category. Two of the most common ones we hear about are Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. What happens in this is it's affecting our normal flora. So there's an abnormal response to the harmless bacteria in our gut or a microbiome that benefits the host. So this is bacteria that helps provide energy and nutrients, but we're making antibodies to this. And so they're being destroyed. We have an increased level of our inflammation promoting cytokine, specifically interleukin 12. Okay. And then you can read here what interleukin 12 does. It helps activate those T1 helper cells, which then secrete pro-inflammatory molecules. And so it's like the immune system got turned on, but it can't get turned off. So we have that persistent effect happening here. And then what happens then is it just changes our gut microbiome, which is the bacteria in our gut, like our normal flora. So that's bad. And then the last one I'll just touch on, you've probably heard, is celiac disease. And this is a reaction to gluten, which is a protein, like a wheat protein. The gluten actually helps like form the bridges of like the dough. So glue. But anyway, we have an autoantibody or reaction to gluten, and then people with celiac disease can't absorb the nutrients correctly. It's its own unique little guy, in that it has to do with a specific food being the trigger, and it's not an allergic reaction. It's another type of reaction, so it's not our hypersensitivity reaction. Are we still? Oh yeah, still here. Just a couple more to talk about. So we have amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, which you probably have heard ALS. 6-7 years ago, there was the ice bucket challenge. That was for ALS. This is a degenerative disorder of the nervous system. Degenerative. And so what happens is we have this degeneration of our nerve cells in the brain and the spinal cord. And then it just causes, it starts slow, and we'll have first movements will be affected, maybe on a certain side, like maybe a certain hand or arm. And then it just spreads throughout the body. And eventually it's going to get to speech, the ability to swallow and stuff like that. And it is fatal. And people with this, like, they're in their right mind, they know what's happening, they just can't control it. And again, no cure. The last one is multiple sclerosis. You might see that abbreviated as MS. And this is it's another kind of degenerative, but what it does is it's a demyelation of the central nervous system. And so our nerves, especially those like in our brain and spinal cord, have a myelin sheath on them, kind of like this protective cover. And so in MS, that myelin protective cover is being basically attacked. Well, it is being attacked with our anti-myelin antibodies. And then it's having issues, and it's being kind of destroyed or degenerated. And it's thanks to our T cells. So thanks, guys. And again, no cure. Okay. So these are just some of the others that I really wanted you to at least kind of know what they are. But we're going to start focusing then on our two most destructive systemic. So that means it's the whole body autoimmune diseases. And that's systemic lupus erythematosus and rheumatoid arthritis. when we jump in there, there are other forms of lupus, but we're just going to focus on SLE, the systemic lupus erythematosus. So let's break here and then we'll come back with SLE.